Hello everyone, it's Theme Park Avenue, I am Eric. Quite a while back, I made a video about Rocky Mountain construction roller coasters, reviewing all of them based on their names. Because the rides just so happen to have notoriously bad names. Things that are either too verbose, or weird extensions of pre-existing names. It's all very odd. That said, there is a general type of roller coaster I think might have even worse names overall. Disney roller coasters. Now the difference here is that while Rocky Mountain Construction has roller coasters that are named by a variety of different park chains that own their rides, all of these are under the same people. And it's interesting how consistently bad they can be. Mind you, there are plenty of great names, but it can be very fun to talk about this, so in this video, I will be reviewing every Disney roller coaster based on its name. For those who did not see the Rocky Mountain Construction roller coaster one, I give each one a score out of 10, 1 being the worst, 10 being the best, and I explain why I think it deserves this score. Mind you, there is no perfect objective criteria. The name quality varies for everyone. Generally, for me, it's based on whether or not the name is fun to say, fun to write, if it makes sense for the ride, tells you what it's all about. Generally, a short, catchy name that tells you what the ride's going to be is a good name, and a long or confusing name that is weird to read or sounds weird to say can be a big issue. The only two other caveats are, first of all, do not take these as gospel. I'm pretty sure I'll look back on this in a few months and say, oh wow, some of those numbers were way off. The other thing, I'm going to go in order of the parks. I'm going to start at the Orlando Resort, then Anaheim, then Paris, then Tokyo, then Shanghai, then Hong Kong, just so you know what to expect when. I'll try to timestamp that if I can, and generally I'm going to skip over repeat names. There are some subtle changes in names that I will mention, but if it's Space Mountain at one park and Space Mountain's at another park, we're only talking about it once. With all of that out of the way, let's begin. Starting with Magic Kingdom roller coasters, we have Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, 6 out of 10. This is a fine name. It tells you what it's about. It rolls out the tongue pretty well, but it's kind of unspectacular. I don't know, it's not bad, but it just feels like your average runaway mine train type name from a Six Flags park with 7 dwarfs on it. Which makes sense for the ride itself, but it's no better than that really. Space Mountain, 5 out of 10. Space Mountain feels weird to me because it is not a mountain. Nothing about the ride feels like a mountain, but it is in space, so it gets half credit there. The Barnstormer, 6 out of 10. Is a fun name to say. I don't fully get what a Barnstormer is, but I don't feel like using Google, so we're going to leave it at that. It's a fine name, rolls off the tongue well, but doesn't really mean that much. Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, 6 out of 10. I think Big Thunder is a really cool pairing of words to have, and if I were to go to an actual place called Big Thunder Mountain, I would think that's awesome. That said, I think 4 words is a bit much. Generally, I wouldn't want a ride to have more than 3 words in the name, and I do wish this one was cut down a bit. Tron Light Cycle Power Run, 3 out of 10. Not a good name, simply put. It's 4 words, and the only ones I think really work are Tron Light Cycle. If you made it Tron Light Cycle or Tron Power Run, maybe it works. It just does not roll off the tongue for me. It feels a lot like the name Wonder Woman Golden Lasso Coaster. You have too much there. It's just like that, but without the word coaster, which I do appreciate, but still, this is probably the worst name at Walt Disney World. Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind, 4 out of 10. I think Cosmic Rewind is a good name, and fits with Guardians of the Galaxy well. But when you have to take that whole package into mind, it's not great. Cosmic Rewind on its own would probably be an 8, and I don't fully blame the park for this one having a low score because you may not know it's Guardians otherwise, if you're not familiar with them. But maybe Cosmic Rewind isn't as great then, if it doesn't really tell you what the ride's about. I think it's good on its own, that part, but because they had to add such a long name for the team in front of it, it brings it down. Slinky Dog Dash, 7 out of 10. Fun kid name. I really don't have many issues with it. It's quick, it's fun, It's alliterative partially, and that's great. No issue there, really. Rock and Roller Coaster starring Aerosmith. 9 out of 10. Rock and Roller Coaster is simply one of the very best names you'll find in any Disney roller coaster. It's so much fun. You know, it's a pun. I like puns. Rock and roll, roller coaster, it works very well. And even though Rock and Roller Coaster is technically 4 words, it is a pretty easy one to say and a fun one. That said, the full name is Rock and Roller Coaster starring Aerosmith. I feel like they probably were required to add that, which is why I give them a little bit more leeway. It was probably more of a licensing thing or advertising, but I can still recognize that on its own, Rock and Roller Coaster is the best name we're going to talk about on the whole list. Except for one. Expedition Everest, Legend of the Forbidden Mountain. 8 out of 10. Expedition Everest on its own would be an easy 10. An alliterative, super fun name that tells you exactly what you're getting into. An adventurous ride through the tallest mountain in the world. That said, Legend of the Forbidden Mountain does not feel like it needed to be added. It might be a good tagline for a movie, but unfortunately, I'm considering the whole name, and in a conversational setting, I think considering the full name brings it down just a bit. Moving over to Disneyland Anaheim and Disney's California Adventure. Gadgets Go Coaster. 7 out of 10. This is fun. It's alliterative. Go-Go Gadget's a very fun thing. I remember from seeing it in my childhood because my parents made sure I saw that. And it's just a very fun name. There really isn't a big issue with it. It's not an amazing ride, and some might not like it getting a higher score than some highly acclaimed roller coasters, but still, the name is fun. Matterhorn Bobsleds. 8 out of 10. I think just Matterhorn on its own would be an awesome name for a ride. But still, this one tells you exactly what you're getting into. It's 2 words, it's quick to say, it's not as catchy as Rock and Roller Coaster, but it still earns a high score. Goofy's Sky School. 6 out of 10. Also has some alliteration in there. That said, it just kinda happens, and it's not quite as charming as Gadget's Go Coaster. Incredicoaster. 6 out of 10. Some do not like the pairing of a word and coaster, but I think it works okay here. Incredible doesn't really lead into coaster that well, but it does tell you what the ride is gonna be, so it gets some points for that. Not amazing, but not bad. Over to Disneyland Paris Resort. Star Wars Hyperspace Mountain. 5 out of 10. The Star Wars is on the website, so it counts. And it should not be there in the first place. Hyperspace Mountain would get a high score. It is a very great way to improve upon the Space Mountain name by adding to that Star Wars theme, because it just kind of works better. I know it's not a mountain still, but it's just kind of a fun way to expand upon a pre-existing name, and it probably would have gotten a 7. That said, this long name brings it down a good bit. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Peril. 5 out of 10. This sounds like probably the name of the worst Indiana Jones movie if they were to make it. Temple of Peril just seems like a dumber way to say Temple of Doom, but it's really not a great roller coaster name. Indiana Jones Adventure, I know it's a name they've used before, but it's quicker and would fit better. Big Thunder Mountain. 9 out of 10. Paris and Tokyo do not have the World Railroad in the name, and for that reason, it gets a very high score. Big Thunder Mountain is an awesome name. I've touched on this, I really don't need to explain it that much further. Crush's Coaster. 8 out of 10. Alliterative, quick, tells you what you're getting into, I love it. RC Racer. 7 out of 10. Once again, you got the great alliteration there. It's 4 syllables total, and even though it doesn't necessarily fit with what the ride is because it's a half-pipe type ride, you don't really race at all, it is a good name, so it still gets pretty high marks for me. Over to Tokyo. We have a lot of repeats, so we're going to skip straight to the Disney Sea rides. Flounder's Flying Fish Coaster. 4 out of 10. While there is alliteration, it's not the easiest to say, so I don't love that. And not to mention, it has 4 words, which is usually a dampener, and it certainly is in this case. 4 out of 10. Raging Spirits. 6 out of 10. I initially figured this was the name of some sort of bar in the park, not a roller coaster. so it really does not tell you what the ride is gonna be. That said, it sounds kinda cool, so it gets a bit of a pass. For Shanghai Disneyland, we have one to discuss. Rex's Racer, 7 out of 10. This one, similarly to RC Racer, has that alliteration factor, but maybe slightly better. Gets a pretty good score overall. And now for the final park, Hong Kong Disneyland. First up we have Wandering Oaken's Sliding Sleighs, 3 out of 10. It's okay, I guess, but it really is just a kiddie ride name. It's not even a good kiddie coaster name. And I feel like it's not supposed to be the smallest ride in the world. Maybe I'm miscalculating, but it just does feel a bit too basic of a name and too explanatory, and maybe just sliding sleighs would have worked fine in a frozen area. And finally, Big Grizzly Mountain Runaway Mine Cars, 1 out of 10. There are 6 words in this name. You don't need that many, I'm sorry. Not to mention the syllable counts. You got 10 total syllables, Big Grizzly Mountain Runaway Mine Cars. If you shorten it to Big Grizzly Mountain, I guess it works, but it doesn't sound as good as Big Thunder either. So nothing really works about it. There's not any alliteration technically. You have mountain and mine, but they're separated. So there isn't really any super easy way to say it that sounds great. If you split it up, you can have Runaway Mine Cars, but that has the same issue as I was saying earlier about Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. So overall, this simply is a terrible name, and they should maybe shorten it by at least 2 words. And that is all the Disney roller coasters. Thank you for watching. I'm sure I triggered some of you, but please comment down below your thoughts, and let me know if I should do this about other Disney rides. If you're interested, I might end up doing so pretty soon. Subscribe for more theme park content. I'll see you next time.